In a world that often feels divided by fences, checkpoints, and an endless cycle of fear, there are still quiet, powerful moments that rise above the noise of war. This is a story about one of those moments. Imagine a town, scarred by conflict, where the daily soundtrack is one of uncertainty. But within this town, a modest community center became a beacon of light. Every afternoon, a group of children would gather there. They weren't there to learn about war or politics. They were there to draw, to dream, and to remember what peace felt like. The walls of the center were a testament to their hope, covered in crayon suns, vibrant houses, and stick figures holding hands. The air was filled with a sound that felt almost revolutionary in a place so often filled with grief. Pure, unadulterated laughter. One day, an aid worker, inspired by the children's spirit, brought them an idea. "What if," she suggested, "we send your drawings to the prisoners, to people far away who haven't seen their families in a very long time?" The children, full of a wisdom that adults sometimes forget, didn't hesitate. They had a simple question: who are the prisoners? The aid worker's answer was just as simple, and it was all they needed to hear. "They are people," she said softly, "just like us." And with that, a mission of kindness began. They gathered paper, sweets, and tiny trinkets, whatever they could find. A colorful ribbon here, a carefully folded paper heart there, stickers from old, worn-out notebooks. They wrapped each package with an invisible thread of hope. Each letter they wrote started differently, each a unique message from the heart. "To someone who is alone," one began. Another read, "To the person who misses home." Some were even simpler, just a heartfelt plea. "Please don't be sad." Their drawings were a portal to a world they longed for. They drew sprawling green fields, faces beaming with smiles, and doves carrying olive branches, a universal symbol of peace. Some even drew rainbows stretching across broken, crumbling walls, a defiant splash of color against the gray backdrop of conflict. They poured their innocent dreams onto paper, sealing them in envelopes destined for strangers they'd never meet, men who were considered the enemy. Weeks passed. Then, far beyond the intimidating lines of barbed wire, in a stark and silent prison yard, the packages arrived. The arrival of these small, colorful envelopes was an anomaly. The guards, accustomed to a world of strict rules and suspicion, were confused. Such things just didn't happen here. But for the prisoners, men who hadn't felt the touch of innocence or kindness in years, this was a moment suspended in time. They opened the envelope slowly, almost reverently, as if afraid the fragile hope inside might vanish if they moved too quickly. What they found inside was more powerful than any weapon. Inside were drawings bursting with life, small, sweet candies, and letters written in the uneven, earnest handwriting of children. One man, his face weathered by hardship, just stared at a simple picture of a boy and a dog playing under a tree. It was a scene from a life he thought he'd lost forever. Another prisoner unfolded a small note that read, "I hope you see your family soon." Tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed for years began to fall. Some of the men smiled quietly, a flicker of warmth returning to their eyes. Others pressed the letters to their chests and wept, overwhelmed by this profound reminder that kindness, in its purest form, still existed in the world. For days, those simple handmade gifts became the talk of the entire prison. They were passed from hand to hand, shared like sacred relics. The men memorized the vibrant colors, the names of the children signed at the bottom of each drawing. They were no longer just prisoners, they were recipients of an unexpected grace. One soldier, who had spent years surrounded by concrete and steel, whispered that he hadn't truly seen the color of a blue sky until he saw it drawn by a child. Another said, his voice thick with emotion, "If a child can find it in their heart to forgive, maybe we all can." The physical walls of the prison didn't crumble that day, but something far more important happened. The walls they had built inside themselves, walls of bitterness and despair, began to fall. Back in the little community center, the children went on with their lives. They continued to draw, to laugh, to play. They never knew the full impact of their small act of compassion, They didn't know how deeply their simple gifts had touched the hardened hearts of strangers across a divide. But somewhere in the world, men who were once taught to see only enemies now carried those drawings close to their hearts, folded carefully in their pockets. These small pieces of paper became their most treasured possessions, a tangible symbol that humanity could connect them in ways that politics never could, and maybe, just maybe, that tiny spark of shared humanity spread quietly, moving beyond the prison walls and out into a world that desperately needed it. In times of war and division, it's so easy to believe that the world is only made of hate, loss, and conflict. It's easy to become cynical, to believe that nothing can change. But then, stories like this emerge, small, often unrecorded, yet incredibly powerful. They are reminders that compassion has no borders, no nationality, no uniform. These gifts from children didn't end the conflict. They didn't magically erase the pain or bring back what was lost. But they accomplished something that months of peace talks and political negotiations often fail to do. They connected human souls across enemy lines, reminding them of their shared humanity. Because sometimes, it doesn't take soldiers or grand speeches or complex strategies to make the world a little softer, a little better. Sometimes, all it takes is the quiet courage of a child, a few crayons, and the unwavering belief that kindness can travel further and faster than fear. This story teaches us that even in the darkest, most hopeless of places, a small, genuine act of humanity can create an echo that rings out louder and longer than the deafening sound of war itself. It reminds us that we all have the power to send a little light into the world. Thank you for listening to this story with me today. If it moved you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us of the good in the world. See you next time.